Cataclysm Classic is now over a week old since launch, and in that time we've seen tons of players return to the game. In fact, given this game's legacy as a whole, it seems to be doing just fine right about now, but of course we still are very early game, there's going to be plenty more to come. I've of course been working on my characters and have been especially interested in setting them up so I can craft cooldown profession items, as well as of course getting raid ready for when tier 11 drops on May 30th. Today I want to share all the various bits and pieces which I've learned during the first week of the expansion that may just be of use to you. There's going to be a whole variety of different stuff here, so hopefully whether you're at the point where you're raid ready yourself or still leveling, you'll be able to find something useful here. But first, a quick word from today's sponsor, Boot.dev. Boot.dev is a platform dedicated to teaching back-end web development from start to finish in the Python and Go programming languages. It keeps things fresh and interesting by treating this learning experience as though it's an RPG where you're in charge of the pace that the action happens. It has things such as achievements, leaderboards, daily goals, and much more. Boot.dev believes in hands-on learning, and getting a solid understanding of the fundamentals and taking your time is absolutely key. On this journey, they also want to get you writing tons of your own code, so you can get a direct understanding of exactly what works and why. But even if you just want to check out Boot.dev before committing fully, it really is risk-free. All the content is free to read and watch in guest mode, and there is a 30 days no question asked refund policy, as well as a free demo of every course and its interactive features. So if coding's ever seemed interesting to you, why not start here? You can click the link in the description box and use my code WillE to get 25% off your first payment for Boot.dev. That's 25% your first month or your first year, depending on the subscription you choose. As always, many thanks to Boot.dev for the continued support on the channel. Let's get on back to WoW. Let's start off from the beginning with the more basic stuff. Questing and the zones you pick and how much you progress through them is kind of a big deal in Cata, and this is especially true early game. Once the first major content patch with the revamped Zul'Gurub and Zul'Aman happens, this will be less of the case because they'll drop tons of item level 353 gear, but at the moment a lot of those epics from Exalted with various reputations are pretty nice to go after. Because every reputation at the moment has good items, they'll have item level 333 gear at Revered, as well as a head enchant, and a normal mode equivalent raid item level 359 item at Exalted. However, not all zones are made equal. You get way more reputation from completing certain zones compared to other ones. For example, if you do everything that there is in Hyjal at the moment, you'll get well into Revered. The same goes for Deepholm. If you complete the zone and do a round of Therazane daily quests, you'll be just about into Revered, which is amazing. On the flip side, Ordum for Ramkahan and your Twilight Highlands rep are nowhere near as generous. You can do the zone and you'll be somewhere in Honoured. And just to mention, the head enchants are bind on account, so once you get Revered with one character, you can go to that reputation, buy the enchant and send it to an alt, so if you don't want to do that rep again on an alt, you don't need to. Also, we've just had an update on the shoulder enchant available from Exalted with Therazane. Now back in the day, I believe this was never made bind on account. I can remember doing this rep grind more than one time across different characters, but it seems as though Blizzard are going to be following what they did with the Sons of Hodir rep in Wrath Classic, and are planning to make this shoulder enchant bind on account. The change to make these shoulders bind on account is now already active in the game as well, so if you have Exalted, go and grab them for your alts. Also, another zone which people either love or hate tends to be Vashj'ir. If you've skipped Vashj'ir and you really just don't want to quest there, I just want to say if you do the introductory quest to it, and it takes you about 30 minutes, you'll unlock the Seahorse mount. And of course, mounts are all bind on account now, so you don't have to go and do that again on your alts, you'll just have the mount. The reputation vendor is also located at Silvertide Hollow, and you can just fly there over the seas if you want to on your mount. You don't need to set up a flight path network, and then fly to the point where you're above the cave, get on your seahorse, swim down, and then buy the tabard or whatever it is you're there to buy, and you can leave. At the very least, I get to friendly with each faction and buy the tabard from them. This means when you're in level 85 dungeons or heroics, you can just change change which reputation you need to the relevant tabard and start working towards those rewards. If you're spamming dungeons as part of a guild group, there's an item you probably have unlocked called the Standard of Unity, and when you put that down you'll get 10% extra reputation. This is pretty good to rotate between if you're spamming dungeons with guildies and can get you to your rep goals a bit faster. There's one more rep to mention, and that is the Tol Barad one, with the battle for Tol Barad of course happening every 3 hours, and you do want to make sure you're winning this once per week for the quest. At the moment though, it seems to be pretty heavily skewed towards attackers, where you can win the round in about 3 to 5 minutes, as opposed to defending where you need to see the full timer out. I managed to win on my first defense and thought, wow, that was easy, but apparently that was a miracle and attackers nearly always win, and since I've started queuing Tol Barad after that, I've only ever seen attackers win. I guess it's typical for how gaming is nowadays. People want the easy route and attacking is so much easier and faster, so people go towards that, and if they get defend, they just go do something else for a bit. I'm sure you've noticed, but there are also a lot of dailies in Tol Barad, so you'll see the ones on the mainland when you teleport in from your capital, but if you go over the bridge to where the main battle usually takes place, assuming the event is not on, there will also be a further 11 more dailies. I believe there's 17 total in Tol Barad which can be done each day. This sounds pretty excessive, but they're all quite clumped up, so it doesn't take that long to do, and in any event, if you're going for a trinket or exalted, you can be done with this within about the space of a week or so. In fact, if you do all the Therazane dailies and all the Tol Barad dailies, you're capped at your 25 daily quests. I can't remember the last expansion where I was actually doing 25 daily quests a day. Still, again, it doesn't really take that long to do, and at least it's some passive gold because professions sure are expensive this expansion. Moving on though, let's talk heroic dungeons. So they are most definitely post-nerf, and I was against this originally. I did want to see pre-nerf, but I have to say, as much as I wanted to put together a good group and sweat them out and do all the achievements and that stuff, heroic dungeons are supposed to be entry-level content to endgame, which is puggable, and if they were in their pre-nerf state, that would have been quite problematic, seeing how things have generally gone in this content so far. I will say, whilst they are a lot easier than they were back in the day and far fewer things will one-shot you, some trash packs in there and bosses still absolutely do hurt a lot when you're just running into them and people aren't pressing their defensives, their interrupts, or using their cooldowns enough. If I could say one thing about heroic dungeons, it's just don't be afraid to send off your cooldowns as they come back up. You really don't need to save everything for bosses. Very few of the bosses are realistically very dangerous, but some trash packs with 4 or 5 mobs in them, think some of the trash packs in the Dead Mines at the start of the Halls of Origination, perhaps some of the ones in Vortex Pinnacle, yeah, they really hurt. You should be pressing your cooldowns on those, especially if you are a tank or a healer. Just run into a pack and throw out all your cooldowns, it's gonna smooth things out significantly, and at the end of the day, if you're getting through the dungeon smoothly, that's what the real goal is. Also, I think worth a mention is there's been a few stat changes in Cata to where certain classes or specs just don't need to roll on items with some stats anymore. If you're a mage or a warlock, you don't need to roll on spirit gear anymore. It was good in Wrath, it just doesn't do anything for you in Cata now. Boomkin, Shadow Priest and Elemental Shamans can convert spirit into hit, so it can be useful, but if something with spirit on drops and it's an upgrade for the healer, I'd probably just pass it on for the healer and let them get the item. Also worth a mention that Feral and Enhancement Shamans don't need strength anymore. That was a Wrath of the Lich King thing where it could be a nice stat. Now in Cata, it's agility all the way. Quick mention for a few add-on things now. So if you've been manually installing Atlas loot because it didn't work at the start of Cata, it's on CurseForge now. So if you just want to go on there and update it as you usually would with any other add-on, you can do that. I just found out about that one the other day, so that's really nice. And reforging is one of the features of the expansion, which has an add-on that can streamline it quite significantly. So the add-on's called Reforge Lite, and I'm just going to show you an example of how it works here. So you can go to your Reforger guy, ask a guard where they are if you don't know in Orgrimmar or Stormwind. And then when you talk to them, it's going to open this new UI here. So you can click Import Preset from the top of the UI that opens here, and you may need to change the values based off of what's simming better for your class, how much hit you need, expertise, anything you want to just change the values. I'm just showing you can import a preset here, and maybe that does it it just fine for your class. For me, my ret spec on my paladin is just going to be for dailies, so again, I'm not worrying about this too much, just for an example. Once you're happy with the stats that are shown, you can hit calculate, usually hit it a few times as it may come up with slightly different and hopefully better results, and then go further down and click where it says show, and then reforge, and it will reforge all your items into the stat priorities which you have chosen. This just speeds up the process of reforging a lot, and makes it a bit easier to understand which stats are going where, and what you're choosing, so would recommend getting this. A quick mention to Archaeology as well, and yes, I really am talking about Archaeology after the expansion has launched. Don't think you're out the prison yet. There's a 359 epic caster ring from Tolvir, which is going to be pre-bis for basically every caster as far as I am aware. Now this is an item which is epic, but it is nowhere near as rare as any of the weapons that you may have been farming in the pre-patch, such as the staff or the two-handed sword or anything like that. I've seen so many cases where people get this within their first 2 rare solves. People often get the scarab brooch trinket and then the ring, or vice versa. Myself, I got it in about 15 solves or so, though definitely the most annoying bit of this is getting Tolvir dig sites to spawn. And I was doing this with Night Elf and Fossil cleared as well, and it still took me a couple of hours. But if you've done everything else and you wanted something to farm, this really isn't too bad to get on average. Of course, it's bind on account as all Archaeology items are, well, the ones you can equip anyway. So if you have multiple characters that can use this, I would definitely give it a try. Next, for a quick mention on Justice points and Valor points. So with Justice points, they're super easy to cap out when you start spamming heroics. Obviously, you could spend them on stuff you're off spec. There's a trade goods vendor nearby, but prices for everything have gone down quite fast already. Alternatively, you could buy heirlooms instead. One way or another though, do track your Justice points and don't let them cap, because otherwise you'll be wasting them once you're over 4,000. And for Valor points, the boots from the vendor are bind on equip. So for example, if you have a main that doesn't have any boots from an exalted reputation and you farmed the majority of your Valor cap last week, you could finish it off with the reset, buy the boots and send them over to your main for pushing on heroic raid progression. Alternatively, if you don't care about your ult too much at this early stage, you could just sell the boots. I wouldn't go and buy a specific one, I'd just type in general or trade chat that you're selling the Valor boots and you're looking for X amount of gold. I'd try and base the gold based off what other bind on equip items are going for on the auction house on your server. After that, you can see what offers you get and go from there. No other item from Justice points or Valor points are bind on equip, so I just wanted to let you know that the boots are, and they could be of use to you. Last but not least is the Dark Moon Fair and capping out your professions. So as part of the Dark Moon Fair, there's a quest you can do once per fair that will give you 5 points in one of your professions. This appears to give 5 points whichever stage you completed at, so if you're getting near to capping out a profession, I would save this quest for then, because some of those final skill points can cost legitimately thousands of gold. And that is just about everything I have for the opening week of Cata and what I've learned so far. Hopefully there was something useful there for you, or you found something new that you can work towards. I'm super looking forwards to getting into the raiding content and seeing how it goes, as well as just playing more characters, because for me the Cataclysm class changes so far have been pretty amazing. Anyways, let me know what you thought, whether there was anything else big which you would add to this, and as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening in. And I'll see you on the next one very soon.